Welcome to Gemara Academy. In this class, we will present an introduction to the Gemara Masechta Shabbos on Daf Chesam and Aleph and Daf Chesam and Beis. So this introduction consists of four things. Number one, there's an idea that's called Ein Karmelis B'Kelim. What that means is there is no Karmelis by Kelim. So we'll explain that a little bit. A Kli, like at the box in our Gemara speaks about a box that's 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim wide and less than 10 tefachim high, which typically that will qualify as a karmelis, between 3 and 10 tefachim high, something in the Rosh Hashanah that's 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim wide, and between 3 and 10 tefachim high is a karmelis. So a kli in Rosh Hashanah that has the dimensions of a karmelis, 4 by 4 tefachim wide, and 3 to 10 tefachim high, isn't a karmelis, because ein karmelis b'kelim. The next thing is Erev Tchumen. There's a few points about an Erev Tchumen that we need to know for our Gemara. Number one, in order for a person to walk beyond 2,000 amas, he needs an Erev Tchumen. So the din is if a person's in a city, and outside of the city it's a desolate area, a person is only permitted to walk 2,000 amas out of that area. If a person desires to walk beyond that point, so let's say for example he wants to be able to walk 3,000 amas, so what he's able to do is he can make an Erev Tchumen, which means he sets his Mokim Shvisa, the place that he is resting, at a distance from the city, and that's considered his place of resting. So let's say he would do it 1,000 amas or 1,500 amas out of the city. So now he's allowed to walk another 2,000 amas, so he could get to his destination 3,000 amas away. So if it's 1,500 amas away, he could walk from the city to the Mokim Shvisa, because it's within the 2,000 limit. And then since this is his place of rest, he can also walk from the Mokim Shvisa another 2,000 amas. So in order for a person to walk beyond 2,000 amas, he needs an Erev Tchumen. Now an Erev Tchumen consists of, it is done using food, since food establishes the place of a person. So that place is considered his place of resting, and therefore he's allowed to travel from there in any direction 2,000 amas. And the last part, which is most important for our Gemara, is that the person needs to be able to eat the food in the place that he intended to acquire as his Mokim Shvisa. So if the person has in mind that his Mokim Shvisa is 1,500 amas out of the city, and it's an area that's a Rosh Hashanah, but he placed the food in a Rosh Hashanah nearby, for example, on a post that was there in the Rosh Hashanah that was 10 tefachim high and 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim wide, he placed the food on top of it. It won't be a valid Erev Tchumen because he intended, his kavanah was that a Mokim Shvisa, his place of resting, should be in the Rosh Hashanah. The food was placed in the Rosh Hashanah. He's unable to eat it in the Mokim Shvisa since he can't carry the food from the Rosh Hashanah to where he intended that his place of resting should be, which is a Rosh Hashanah. The third thing is Bein Hashmoshes. The literal translation of Bein Hashmoshes is between the servants. So we'll explain that a little bit. Twilight time. This is twilight time, which is between the time when the sun serves and the moon serves. The sun already set, so it's not serving anymore. And it's not yet time for the moon to serve because we cannot see 3 stars. So the moon and the stars are not serving yet. It's in between. And this time, which is in between, is considered a suffix whether it's still part of the previous day or is it already the beginning of the next day. So is it considered part of the previous day or part of the next day? The way that relates to our Gemara is this time is a doubt if it's day or night, and as a result, Rebbe holds that Isurim that are Midrabanan, which are a Shvus, do not apply. When it comes to Shabbos, the time Friday evening, twilight, between when the sun set and 3 stars come out, so the sun is not serving anymore, neither are the moon and stars, that time is a doubt if it's already Shabbos or it's still part of Friday. And since at the time that's a doubt, the Isurim, which are only Midrabanan, they're not Minat Torah, they're only Midrabanan, and they're called a Shvus, do not apply. And then the last and final thing, which is an introduction to our Gemara, is the idea of a question from a Brisa, and then a quote, which we'll explain in a moment. So when there's a question from a Brisa, or Mishnah for that matter, on an Amira, so an Amira is not allowed to argue with a Mishnah or a Brisa, which is the opinion of a Tana. So if there's an alternative way of understanding the Brisa that we remove the question, that's done. So at times a Mishnah or a Brisa is presented as a question on an Amira. In our Gemara it's a Brisa. So one of the ways that an Amira could respond to this is by saying that there's an alternative way of understanding this Brisa, which will not create a question on his opinion. And that's typically done, that the Amir will say, there's another way of learning it, and I'll choose that way. In our Gemara, it goes even further. And the Gemara says, don't say I'm just pushing you off. I'm pushing you off. Rather, I'm saying it specifically. Usually, when we quote the Brisa, as a question on the Amira, we're presenting the straightforward and most simple and basic way of understanding the Brisa, which presents a question on the Amira. The Amira will respond, or we will respond to defend the Amira by presenting an alternative way of learning the Brisa. And oftentimes, the second way is less straightforward and less simplistic than the first one, and that's why the first way of presenting it was brought up that way as a question on that Amira. In our Gemara, we have an Amira responding and saying, it's not just a possible explanation the way I interpreted the Brisa as a response to the question that was posed to him from the Brisa. He said he could learn it differently. It's not just that it could be learned differently. Don't say push off, I am pushing you off. Rather, I'm telling you this thing specifically. It's not just another interpretation. It's actually the correct one. And the reason is because he brought in our Gemara. It applies to Rava. Rava will bring a proof that the original way of learning the Brisa is not possible to say, since then the Brisa is saying an idea which is contradicted elsewhere. So it must be that the Brisa means to say the response that Rava offered to explain the Brisa. And with this we have the introduction to our Gemara.